Conspiracy theories are fun and interesting, but they're crazy, right? What if I told you there were some conspiracy theories that have been proven correct through declassified documents, and even the government will tell you they're true? Before we begin, let's define what a conspiracy theory is. In this video, I'm talking about conspiracy theories that can be summarized as this: a conspiracy or a theory that a group of people would tell you is absolute fact, but a governing body like, I don't know, the CDC or health organization, government, whatever, an authority has denied. But we're only going to be talking about the ones that have been proven to be correct beyond a shadow of a doubt. So the agency that once denied them now agrees that this is true, or some sort of governing body like the government has said, yes, this is actually true. So no flat earth stuff, nothing crazy, just things that have actually been proven. Although if you do think the earth is flat, I mean, I'd love to see the thread in the comments. Go nuts. And in today's video, because I would like to make it a series, hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more of these. I want to talk about atrocities put onto humans by the government or another agency that we really knew was bad for us in the first place. And yes, we're going to be talking about the one you think we're going to talk about. But first, let's talk about MKUltra. MKUltra was an illegal human experiments program designed and undertaken by the CIA to develop procedures to identify drugs that could be used during interrogations to weaken people and force confessions through brainwashing and psychological torture. It started in 53 and ended in 73, so this is a 20-year experiment on human beings who oftentimes had no idea they were the subject of an experiment in the first place. In the declassified documents, it's actually considered a mind control, and it wasn't just one substance. LSD was the #1 substance that they would give to people. Oftentimes, Johns from brothels would be taken, given LSD, and then these experimenters would stand behind one of those walls that looks like a mirror but really is a see-through window and watch these guys just completely trip out to study the effects on LSD. Now, of course, there's more to it than that, but that's just the fun, crazy, I can't believe that happened and now they admitted to doing it part. What's crazy is how much money they spent. Over $10 million. $10 million back then is, if you adjust for inflation, $87.5 million they spent on dosing people and psychologically torturing people, more or less, without them knowing. It wasn't just drugs, but isolation, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, just terrible things that you'd never do to a dog, cat, or research animal, never mind an actual human. There were some crazy experiments where they would give a barbiturate to one of these test patients and then they would give an amphetamine. So in one arm, they'd give a sedative, and then in the other arm, as the subject started to fall asleep, they'd give an amphetamine to wake him up. That must feel absolutely terrifying. So to summarize, most of the people that were tested upon didn't even really know it, or they were involved and were told not to talk about it. So drug addicts, prisoners, and there is a conspiracy theory that hasn't really been proven but has some really big legs to it, really good sources to say that Charles Manson was part of these experiments too. And by really good sources, I mean like all the sources except for the CIA is still saying no, that wasn't true, but I mean, come on. The existence of MKUltra was first brought to public attention in 1975 by the Church Committee of the U.S. Congress and a presidential committee known as the Rockefeller Commission. Both bodies investigated the CIA activities and revealed extensive detail about MKUltra. The issue and the reason the CIA and the government really didn't want this to get out is because there are so many other conspiracy theories that fell because of this, or conspiracy theories that to this day they deny, but just kind of seems like if they did that, then couldn't they have done this? Further, in 1973, the commission destroyed a bunch of documents, which means we don't even know the full extent of what happened in the 20-year period because a lot of the records are just gone. In Canada, the issue took much longer to surface because there was experimentation going on in Canada as part of MKUltra as well. But it became widely known in 1984 on the CBC News show, The Fifth Estate. It was found out that the CIA was funding this and the Canadian government knew all about it. Not only that, but the government gave $500,000 of 1984 currency to help continue these studies. They're experiments, not studies. This is cruelty. Of the 127 victims in Canada, all of them got $100,000 settled out of court. So not really justice, but it's something. Next, we're going to talk about one that I don't want to name because YouTube will censor the channel and censor this video. So you know what I'm talking about, the big C. That's what we're going to call it. Now keep in mind, this is all proven stuff. This is not hokey dokey conspiracy. I got this information from the CDC, the government website, reputable newspapers, mainstream stuff. I did not research on the Joe Rogan podcast or something like that. Not that there's anything wrong with the Joe Rogan podcast. I'm just saying all of this came from mainstream sources, not alternate sources. There's a bunch of conspiracy theories that were now proven to be wrong. For example, it is now widely believed that the wet market theory, so basically the theory was that it was a bat, an infected bat that was, at a night market. I've been to night markets in Asia. They're really cool places and there's a lot of crazy stuff. Well, to you and I maybe, Western people, it'd be crazy the things you can buy for eating, but there it's pretty normal. And the theory was, well, someone ate an infected bat, it transmitted to humans, and then that's how the whole thing started. When the theory arose that it was probably the Wuhan lab, which was doing gain-of-function research, we now know with beyond a shadow of a doubt, nobody is denying that now, and they were working on this exact virus, it probably leaked because that's where it started, that's where, it's just very obvious. And everybody who said that was deemed a conspiracy theorist, a tinfoil hat wearer. Now the most probable theory, according to everybody, including the people who demonize the people who first said this is the most recognized theory and the one that is probably true. Second were the lockdowns preventing spread in any meaningful capacity. Before you call me a crazy person, my information is from Johns Hopkins, which is, I can't think of a more reputable source. The lockdowns imposed all over the country did not slow the pandemic, but did enormous damage. Johns Hopkins issued a meta-analysis stating that while lockdowns have had little to no public health effect, they have imposed enormous economic and social costs where they have been adopted. I'm taking a direct quote here, so I will read it. We now know that the natural immunity derived from infection is far superior to that of the so-called vaccines. That's crazy that they call it so-called vaccines, which prevent neither infection nor transmission. The February edition of the liberal Lancet Medical Journal reviewed 68 studies concluding that the vaccines lose effectiveness sooner than natural immunity. Keep in mind that the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and other health authorities dismissed natural immunity in favor of vaccines for nearly 2 years. So if you all remember this, during that time, it was said if you don't get the jab, well, you're gonna basically get infected and it's going to be worse for you. And we now know that's really not true, and natural immunity was far better in the first place. It was longer lasting, it was healthier for you, and there was no negative side effects of getting something that you probably didn't need. Again, this is from a source, not my opinion. Not only that, but the Greatlington Declaration was completely dismissed, and now we know if we followed the guidelines, we would have been much better off. The Greatlington Declaration, formerly known as the Greatlington Declaration, is a statement that was authorized and signed by a group of scientists and medical professionals in October of 2020. It advocates for an alternative approach for managing the Big C and emphasizes focused protection rather than widespread lockdowns and restrictions. The scientists and actual medical professionals, some of them were kicked off of Twitter and other platforms, by the way, we all now agree with we probably should have done what you said, including Dr. Fauci, who said during that time, not a direct quote, "We can't let these people's voices be heard. This is dangerous, blah, blah, blah." And now even he says, yeah, we probably should have done that. And lastly, let's talk about masks. I'll take another direct quote from a source. A meta-analysis published in the Cochrane Review on January 30th concluded that masks make little to no difference in preventing the transmission of the Big C and other viruses. The mask mandate did nothing. Will any lessons be learned? And before that, he was accused of being an absolute crackpot who had no scientific basis for his claims. Turns out he was right all the way around. And of course, there was hesitancy to get the jab, and a lot of that was in a certain community, and all of that comes to number 3 on the list, the Tuskegee Syphilis Study, which was actually an experiment, not a study. Oftentimes called the Tuskegee Syphilis Experiment or Tuskegee Study of Untreated Syphilis, was a notorious and unethical study. This was performed on black men, and this was performed for a very long time. From 1932 to 1972, this is a giant swath of time where infected black males exclusively who had syphilis would oftentimes not be treated, so that scientists and doctors and, well, basically what they were as executioners at this point, could study what syphilis would do to the body without being treated. Keep in mind, in 1947, penicillin was known to be the cure for syphilis. So for most of the study, more than half of it, there was a known cure, and these scientists, I guess, decided not to treat these people so that they could find out what happens when syphilis ravages the body. Guess what? Terrible things. More or less, they took 399 all black men with syphilis and 201 without as a control group, and they were told they were given free healthcare for bad blood, which could be many things, including syphilis. But a lot of the men didn't even know that they had syphilis in the first place. Now keep in mind, even back then in the 1930s, this was considered unethical and widely illegal. There's no law that would protect the people who did this. This was completely illegal. The study was exposed in 1972 by a whistleblower, leading to public outrage and an official investigation. The study was terminated and a class action lawsuit was filed on behalf of the participants. A $10 million out-of-court settlement was reached. On top of that, everyone from this trial who lived, which many of them died by the way, was promised free medical care for the rest of their life, and they would pay for the burial services. They being the US government, which helped fund this and knew all about it, by the way. This obviously was a horrific circumstance, and unfortunately it just shows that because it's the US government doesn't mean they're doing the best for the people. In fact, in a lot of these, or all three of these, a government entity is more interested in money or curiosity than actual humans and their right to live. With that said, let me know in the comments section below what your favorite conspiracy theory is. It doesn't have to be about human experiment or anything like that. I would love to make a part 2. I want to pick your ideas for that video. As always, please hit the like and subscribe. I want to make more of these videos, and you hitting that